Hey, everybody. This is a pre-recorded portion of the Teacher on the Radio program that's going to be dropping into a radio show on next Monday, or when you're listening to it, it will be Monday, October the 17th. And this will be something like the 434th edition of the Teacher on the Radio program. We've been going since 2007 on 88.5 FM WTTU Cookeville, The Nest. And this is an interview portion that's being pre-recorded and being live streamed. So some of you might be finding this on my social medias, my Andrew Smith social media, or the Teacher on the Radio social media. And I'm wearing my interviewing teacher DJ hat today. And I want to just tell everybody, first of all, everything you hear today on this program is the opinion of my guests and mine alone. All views expressed in this radio show do not represent WTTU student management, who are kind enough to let us up here, and definitely do not represent my employer, Tennessee Tech, a public school where I somehow still have a job. I don't even know how that's a thing, but I'm also really grateful for this volunteer job doing this radio show for 15 years. So Cookeville's been pretty weird in the last 5 years. A lot of you all know that if you live here, but if you live anywhere in the Southeast, you know it's been weird. It's been a weird time to be an activist. It's been a weird time to be us, right, Justin? Since maybe the last five to 10 years. So I've only become friends with this guy in the last year, and he's become a good friend of mine, and his name is Justin Veals. He's going to be our guest for the whole 2 hours, and I'm going to splice this into a playlist that he pretty much chose all the music for us today. So it's great to have him as my co-host and my interviewee. So Justin, how's it going, man?
It's going well, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I want to first tell everybody about the really amazing work you're doing, the public-facing work you're doing as a public servant here in Cookeville, working in the nonprofit sector of Cookeville and working around recovery from addiction and also for transition out of incarceration. So you have two things you do. You run a halfway house, or help run a halfway house. I'm sure you get lots of help to do that. And you also help with a unique kind of soup kitchen that though you might not know, I've told you about them, but you might not be that familiar with, like Food Not Bombs and Catholic worker style soup kitchens. But that's how I cut my teeth 30, 40 years ago as a kid, going to, parks and feeding people and things like this. But you have the attitude that I haven't encountered in what I call the charity industrial complex in a long time. And as soon as I met you, I was like, wait, this guy's vibe is different. He's approaching this with a slightly different angle. And that's probably a little bit because of who you are and where you've been. So, and I know this could be the only question, because we could talk for 30 minutes just about this, but why don't you give us the, the speed dial, elevator version, the best you can, of what Recovery Kitchen is, what Independence Again is, and how you ended up working in recovery as a person who himself has struggled with addiction. And everybody knows me, who's listens to the show, knows I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict, and I talk about that all the time. I don't change that story depending on who I'm talking to. Everybody knows right. I'm a drunk. Don't give me any beer, everybody. if you're passing out beer, don't give any to me, because you never know what's going to happen. I might break out in handcuffs. All right. So welcome to Teacher on the Radio, Justin Veals.
Yeah. So, I think the first time you heard me speak about this, I made it clear that it's hard to talk about like what I do without talking about who I am, and who I am is a person in long-term recovery from addiction of all kinds. I was on heroin for 15 years. I've been in and out of institutions, almost 5 years ago, I was arrested for the last time in my life, because I don't plan on doing it again. So, it started this journey for me, where like I got to sit still for a minute and really realize that I hated the way I was living. I hated the things that I was having to do. I wasn't happy. In fact, I felt like I had suicide on layaway plan, and so it started this journey of healing for me, where like I just started like absorbing everything I could find. While I was incarcerated, there weren't programs, 12-step or otherwise. There was church and there were books. And so I just started grabbing any book I could find and reading them and absorbing information and ways to be better. And, I got out with a 10-year sentence, right? And I decided to to move up here with my now wife, Melissa, because she had gotten clean while I was incarcerated and started over up here. And man, at first I just got a job, man. I went to work at a cabinet shop, and we lived at a motel, the Winona, for 10 months because no one would rent to us because I have felony meth charges and she has aggravated burglary charges, and it was just nobody wanted to trust us. And I don't blame them really. It sucks, but I get it. You know what I mean? They think that we're going to rob the neighbors and make drugs in the bathroom. So based on our history, and so it was difficult. But what happened was the universe planted me right where I needed to be, man. I started going to a 12-step fellowship. I started, working on myself, and I started being involved there and going out into the community and trying to find places where we could have meetings and all that. And I got a call one day from my executive director, now Linda Loftus, and I'd only met her once before. And she said, "Look, I'm starting a men's program. I need somebody to run it. And I keep asking around town, who should I talk to? Who should I talk to? And 3 times this week, people have mentioned your name because of the other work that you've been doing, and that's really just showing up and talking about recovery and trying to be there for other people." And she said, "So the job's yours if you want it." She had no reason to hire me, she didn't know me, and she trusted me, and she gave me a set of keys and this policy book that she had sourced, through 3 years of running a women's program, and just sort of like let me do it. And so we finished a remodel and we opened up, and we're a program that for reentry of all kinds. So we work with guys that are in rehab, guys coming out of prison, guys coming out of jails, guys who are living on the streets. And the only real prerequisite for them coming in here is that they've decided that the life they're living isn't what they want to continue doing. And so we bring them in here, and using fact-based forms of therapy and the 12 steps and anything else that we can do this shotgun approach and throw at these guys. We let them heal at their own pace. So guys are here from 6 months to 24 months. I think the longest resident I've had was here for 22 months before he graduated and moved out. And it's, our focus is definitely substance use disorder, but we deal with all kinds of stuff here. Drug use is just a symptom of my condition, is what I was taught. And I'm going to so I need to work on a bunch of other things, and that's where we spend most of our time, getting guys ready to deal with life on its own terms, and not go back to prison and not use and stop hurting people in their lives. And it's been a rewarding experience. We're a nonprofit. We get to help people regardless of their financial situation. We bring them in, we eliminate barriers to employment. We get them plugged into a community of recovery here in Cookeville, which Cookeville has a very strong and active recovery community of all kinds, no matter what area you're trying to get in. I mean, if you're a faith-based person, there's plenty of that. If you're a 12-step person, there's plenty of that. If you want to go to treatment and ILP, we've got that too. And, so Cookeville is a great place. And I've just been blessed to be able to do this work because I never had a purpose in my life. I never had anything that meant anything to me. And this work gave me everything I ever wanted. Sometimes it's frustrating and it's stressful, and but I never want to quit, and I always wake up the next day ready to help these guys out. And seeing someone, because when I got clean and I started healing, I didn't see the progress I was making. Right. So it's really hard for me to see the changes are happening because they're so incremental and they're inside my own head that, like, I'm changing every day, but I don't notice. But seeing the guys when they come in, fresh off the streets or prison, and seeing how much 3 months of difference makes, or 6 months difference makes. And then, I've got graduates now that have been clean for, 2 years or more, and I see them getting married and all this stuff. And it's just like seeing the changes is so rewarding and positive. And I'm of the mind that I owe the universe a debt, and this is how I'm going to repay it. And it's been great. And, our homeless outreach work, Recovery Kitchen, spawns from that. And you're right, I could talk about this stuff for 4 hours, but I'll try to get it as quickly as possible. But, Recovery Kitchen started not as an organized mission. We received tons of donations from the tornado stuff. Like when the tornadoes came through, there was food donations for everybody. There was organized charity happening all over the place. And we are a group home, and people were dropping food at our door all the time. And we ended up with like 300 hot dogs. And I was like, we're never going to eat these hot dogs no matter what. And so we just decided one day to make all these hot dogs, get some buns, make some hot dogs, wrap them up, and go out and try to find unsheltered men and women in our area, hungry men and women in our area, and just give them something to eat. Nothing else. There was no other point to it. And mainly because, me and my wife, Melissa, we were both on the streets together. I've been homeless, and there were all these angels, man, that came through and gave me food or money or a kind word, or let me sit there and charge my phone or whatever it was that day that made my life just like a little bit easier for the day. And that's all I wanted to do. That's all we wanted to do. Like I don't have the power to eliminate all the barriers to homelessness, but like I can make it a little bit easier for you today. And so like that's what I'm going to do. And I feel like crying right now when talking about it, but I just love the work that we're doing. And then it just grew from that, man. We were doing it once a month just as a, something to do. And then we expanded to twice a month. And then it was every week. And then it just kept growing and growing. And then the mayor put out a press release about what he called the homeless issue, right? And basically started painting every unsheltered man and woman in our community as criminals and addicts and, the unwanted, the other. And I was just really disgusted at how I felt it was being portrayed at that moment. And so I thought, okay, so the mayor doesn't want homeless people, unsheltered men and women in our city. Well, then I'm going to invite them onto my property. And so, and this is the other great thing about my boss, because she just lets me do my work, and so I decided that I was going to throw an event and invite every unsheltered man and woman that I could find onto my property for a meal and clothes and haircuts and Narcan kits and whatever else we could get together. And so we planned a Labor Day event called the Festival of Compassion. We transported them here. They all left with full bellies, extra food, bags full of clothes, Narcan kits, haircuts, and cards for resources if they wanted to make some changes, because the whole point of all this work is also like, I'm not going to come into your home. I'm not going to come find you and tell you what's wrong with your life and tell you how to fix it. I'm coming with some hope and some compassion. I'm just going to treat you like a human being. And if you need something, call me. And if you call me and you want to make some changes, I'll help you get to the point where you can make those changes. I'm not there to dictate how your life is run or what you're doing wrong or any of that stuff. That's not my place, and so the meals are like this handshake, this beautiful handshake that we have with the unsheltered minimum area, where our real commodity in the recovery kitchen is the relationships we've built with the population in which we serve. And because they trust us, we know where they sleep. We know where they move to. We know what's going on in their little interpersonal lives and who we need to watch out for and what's going on, because they tell us, because they trust us. And that trust leads to, some slow help, because it can take years to get someone off the streets, depending on what their barriers are, because we're not dealing with just, hey, just put down the bottle and you'll have a place to live. That's not how it works in our country. No, now you're not intoxicated or high anymore, but you still don't have the money for a place to live. You still can't get a place to live because of your felony charges or the fact that you were evicted when your issues started, or as well as I do, the myriad of issues that lead to someone sleeping in a tent. And so it takes time and effort, and it takes a village. The success stories that we've had, it's not been like me coming in and giving them a meal and giving them some advice, and the next week they're in a place. It's been me coming in and giving a meal, and then we start building this team around these people that slowly, one by one, with our areas of focus, start eliminating things until we can get them here. And so the transitional home that I run also is a part of that. You know, we do bring some men in here and help them start their journey of recovery when we can. And we find them other places to go when we can, if they ask. You know, it's never about pushing what I think they should do on them. I just love them. I'm going to love them. I'm going to go out and give them some food and some love and hope that that translates into them seeing that they're just like me. I'm just like them. Their lives can be better if they want to. And if they want to, I can help them figure that out.
So this is Justin Veals, and he's my guest today on Teacher on the Radio. Teacher on the Radio is being this interview portion is being live streamed, but we're going to drop this radio show on Monday, October the 17th, from 4 to 6 p.m. on 88.5 FM WTTU The Nest. And at this point, we're going to play music, I'm sure, in the interview portion, and then I'm going to come back and we'll have another portion of the interview with Justin Veals, guest today on Teacher on the Radio. And he told you about Recovery Kitchen and Independence Again, and the work that he and his partner Melissa are doing for our friends who are unsheltered and formerly incarcerated here, right here in Cookeville, Tennessee, where I live and where I been doing this radio show for 15 years. Thanks so much to Justin, who's along for the ride. And so now we're back at that little bit long break, so we'll play a lot of music in between the breaks. And this is 88.5 FM WTTU, a pre-recorded edition of the Teacher on the Radio program. And all the views you're hearing expressed today are my guests and mine, do not represent the great student managers here at WTTU or the Tennessee Tech, our employer that makes this possible, this college radio. They had their 50th anniversary this year, Justin, down at 88.5 FM. So I'm gonna transition into our next topic that I previewed with you earlier, and I'm sure we'll go just as far on this one as we went on the last topic, maybe further, but we'll have a little bit of time at the end to talk about our shared love for music, which is of course going to be what we're hearing in between the interview portion of this. But I'm going to use the 12 steps as a way to get us to this next topic. So when I joined AA, I had been drinking heavily for over 20 years, and really the last 10 years in my 30s, all of my 30s, I was in a really bad way with my alcoholism, and that manifested in really this now I've learned is related to my ADHD as well, but I had really poor boundaries in terms of all my relationships. And so I wasn't managing my relationships very well at all. I had terrible boundaries, but I was, I was blacking out and I was getting into stuff that I shouldn't get into. I had some incidents with automobiles and driving intoxicated, and I just was using every day. I was living to use and using to live. And I got into the 12-step program, and I was so desperate that I was like, whatever you all got, I'm here for it. And that's something that you and I have in common. But I noticed, because I had come up in a radical activist community up in Detroit, Michigan, where I'm from, and had espoused that when I was living on my commune over in one county over from us. I lived on the commune over there for a dozen years after I got to Tennessee. I was noticing something, reading the literature, especially in the 12 traditions, that there was this very clear point throughout the big book and the 12 and 12 that there are no authority figures in AA. Now, some people will, or it also extends to NA. Now, some people will say, well, what about the higher power? And isn't that authoritarian? Let's set that aside for a minute, HP, because that's defined by the individual addict or alcoholic, not by the group. But this is a successful anti-authoritarian, anti-organization. It's not even an organization. There's no one's getting paid, and there's all authority is shared, and it's one of probably the most successful anarchist movements in the history that we've lived through, because it's a singleness of purpose. It's not going after all the other causes that we care about. But I've been exposed to anarchism as a young man, and I immediately said, this guy's an anarchist. And so I did some research on it, and I found out that Bill W. in fact was an anarchist, and had actually read the classical anarchist philosophers, and he was specifically inspired by Kropotkin, the guy who came up with the concept of mutual aid, which is peer-to-peer helping each other. And as soon as I met you that day at the Unitarian Universalist Church where I attend, so if anybody's looking for a kind of a crazy radical unchurch, if you will, the Unitarian Universalist congregation over on First Street here in Cookeville might be your place. And Unitarians usually don't proselytize, but I just did, so there you go. Anyway, so I met Justin, and I heard him talk, and I was like, oh, this guy kind of gets it, you know. And then I went up to you afterwards, and I was like, when you use these words, and I mentioned a few words that we used, did you mean what I think you meant? And you said, yes, that's absolutely what I meant. So let's talk. And I want to do this kind of like, because I don't know who's listening, and I don't usually I get a little bit like ranty on my show, but I usually don't like teach, you know, the topic. I just kind of like, you know, wax eloquent for a couple minutes on some little rantoid or whatever, and then I move on to the music. So let's just have a little bit of a like 101 intro for our reacquainting ourselves. Why are we not Democrats? Like, and this is what I said to you before we got on the air today, is
Yeah.
when people around here find out that we're not for Trump, they just assume that we're Democrat, but we're not either. So how did you find anarchism, and this connects with all the music we're playing today on the show? And how do you like to think of the world differently, maybe than your peers who are so we're neither conservative nor liberal in the usual way of thinking of it? How do you define yourself? How does this help you do your work? And this has been a long question,
Yeah.
so I'll just riff with me on this topic for a minute. Yeah.
I'll be free, and I will start with an anecdote. I had to go to the doctor one day, and I have a T-shirt that says eat the rich, feed the poor, right? And so I'm standing outside of the doctor's office here in Cookeville, and this guy, older gentleman in a wheelchair, rolls up and he goes, "Yeah, I like that shirt." You know what I mean? And he starts like kind of talking about it, and he's like, "So are you conservative?" Right? And I said, "No, sir." You know, and he's like, "So you're a Democrat, huh?" And he starts like, "How do you explain this?" And starts asking questions about Joe Biden and all this stuff. I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." I said, I'm not a Democrat either." And then he just got this really like confused look on his face, and then was like, "Okay, well, as long as you're not a Democrat, you're okay with me." And then he just kind of rolls inside, you know what I mean? And like I was thinking, well, if you actually knew how I felt, I probably wouldn't be okay with you, but that's okay. Yeah, I'll take it, you know, because I'm not trying to have like political discourse with most people that I run into every day, especially here. But I mean, you know, I would definitely I identify as an anti-authoritarian, and I identify as an anarchist. You know, in my younger life, which I've talked to you about this before, I consider myself more of a Marxist. I don't know. I tend to have major concerns about human authority and how it's used and how it's portrayed. And having said that, like I have parts of my life where I'm in charge of people and things like that, and I try to do my best, and not taking like advantage of where I'm at, and really trying to like okay, yes, I'm in a supervisory position, but like let's do this with love and understanding, and try not to exert my will too much over another person. And you know, can I use supervision in a way that lets other people make their own decisions, even if it's their decision to leave a community? Yes, I absolutely can. Like I can absolutely state things in a way and talk to people in a way where like at the end of it, like they're actually making their own decision. I'm not throwing you out of my home, right? I'm telling you like, so we have rules in our community, right? That we've decided our rules, and everyone agrees to follow those rules when they're here, and you're deciding not to do that. So like this is what the community expects of you, and that's how I try to phrase things, and it works really well, man, because like I don't have to be the super bad guy anymore, right? And I think that comes from my understanding of anarchy at an elementary level, man, because like I'm not sitting around studying these big books on anarchist thought. I'm in some Reddit message boards, and I think that like what changed for me from my Marxist past to my current ideas about mutual aid and anarchy is it has to be like this program of recovery that I started working, which I'm glad that you tied that in, because like I'm a member of a huge mutual aid organization where we all meet together and we all talk about our problems and we come to decisions together, right, about things that have to be done, but no one's in charge. Like the the anonymity, which is something that both programs talk about, it also means that like we're all the same. It doesn't matter. There's no one in charge. There's no one at the bottom. We're all right here. Let's figure this out together. It's not group therapy. It's a bunch of people meeting together for mutual benefit. That's it, right? There's no, it's not, we're not promoting it. We're not making money on it. There's nothing. It's just about like, okay, we all have an issue. Let's talk about it. And I think that's great. And I think that started like changing it. I just I used to have these ideas about like Marxist communes where the leadership would change like rapidly and you know and over again. And then I was just thinking, well, like I don't know, I don't really, once somebody gets in charge, they just want to stay in charge. You know what I mean? So like, and I start having problems with that. And the reason I'm not a Democrat is because they're capitalist authoritarians, and I'm neither a capitalist nor authoritarian. You know, so like I also like I'm not pro violence, right? But like I also don't believe that everything can be changed without it. So, and I'm not saying that I don't want to spin up rhetoric in our country about violence and all this other stuff, because I don't know that I feel like we're there. But like I can't just talk my way out of every situation when it comes to dealing with Nazis and fascists. Like they're not going to have the conversation. When I was 15, man, we used to sneak into this punk club called the Mercury, right? And we would show up there, and we had no business being there with these grown men with like drug problems listening to punk rock down on the strip. But we were down there anyway, and they would let us in. And uh, you know, these literal Nazis would show up at the shows, right? These neo-Nazi punks with their boots and all this stuff. And like there would be fist fights, right? You know, and like because we didn't want them speaking for our movement. You know what I'm saying? Like punk rock is not like and you know, like you can almost tell like which side of that right left divide you fall on by the punk rock you listen to, you know. And so and we just didn't want them at the Mercury, man. Like we're not Nazis, you're Nazis, you need to get out of here. And I think that was big in the 90s, man. If you were at punk rock shows, you know, it was always like, you know, people guys showing up with their swastikas and their Doc Martens, and then there was the rest of us, you know, these crusty dudes that just weren't having it. Like my thing is I don't want anybody telling me what to do, but I also don't want to tell anybody else what to do. You know, like I think that like we can work together as communities without this idea of the state and all this other stuff, and we can figure stuff out. Like, what does the state do for me that my community couldn't? Right. And I don't know that there's an answer that's positive, right? So my community can't warehouse hundreds of thousands of individuals on a daily basis. My community can't persecute and oppress the rights of the minority, right? But the state can, right? My community probably wouldn't effectively collect taxes, but the state can, you know. And so like that's like I just don't see the positive reinforcements. And plus I just didn't consent to any of this, right? I mean, I didn't. And you know, in 1981 a little redheaded girl gave birth to a kid at UT hospital, and here I am, you know what I mean, dealing with the consequences that I had no participation in. And like it's just my thing is that I think everyone should have the ability to build a life that makes sense for them, whatever that is. Drugs ruined my life, Andy, and I still don't think they should be legal, right? Because people should make their own choices for their own bodies. And you know, and the second that your intention doesn't matter if your impact is negative, right? So whatever intention we're hearing about, like the anti-camping legislation that was passed this year, where it's a felony to camp on public property. And they tell us that their intention is to protect public property and make it used for what it was meant for and all this other stuff. But that's not really what their intention really is. But it also, the impact is negative. We're talking about stripping away the gun and voting rights of individuals who don't have a home. You know, if you're sleeping in a tent on the streets, you're not gaming any system that exists. You know, like you're not getting one over on me. I was asked one time during a meeting with one of the organizations that donated money to our recovery kitchen work, right? And she was asking about our numbers, how many we were feeding and things like that. And we had agreed to share them because of the funding, right? And we're talking, and she said, well, this rise in numbers, is this legitimate? Right? And I was like, well, we're feeding that many. And what do you mean? We're literally going into homeless camps and handing food to people. Do you think that this guy like put on some dirty clothes and popped a tent in this muddy camp to get a free meal once a week? yes, the numbers are legitimate. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy for you to even ask me that question, you know? And I may be going off track here, but the whole point is that like, I don't believe that anything good that's happening in my community is being done by the government. I believe there is a lot of good in my community being done by people just like me, who woke up one morning and decided that something needed to happen and they went out and did it. You know what I mean? And it goes back to the serenity prayer, man. You know, accept, you know, I'm going to accept these things. I'm going to change these things. You know, if it's unacceptable to me, right, then I've either got to figure out why it's unacceptable or I need to change it. And, you know, and that's why I advocate so strongly for the incarcerated individuals and the unsheltered individuals. And I mean, my hoodie right now says decarcerate and rehabilitate. You know, and this is, you know, no new prisons. You know, the prison system isn't working for the American people. It's working for the system. It's working for the authoritarians in charge, but it's not working for us. And if we could just stop arresting people for mental illness, if we could stop arresting people because they have issues with drugs and alcohol, you know, I get it. If someone's using and breaking into people's homes and hurting people, there should be some consequences for that. But if you just get caught using as an addict, why are they taking away decades of your life? Why are they taking away your right to vote, your right to housing, your right to get a good job? You know what I mean? Like, because that F on your record lasts almost forever, depending on what kind of F it is, right? And, you know, we're talking about, like, I caught dope charges at 36 years old, and I am on the meth registry nationally for the rest of my life, right? And I wasn't making meth. I was using and selling meth. I wasn't making it, you know, so that the meth registry is supposed to be for people manufacturing drugs. I wasn't manufacturing drugs. I was buying them and selling them, you know, but still I'm on that registry for the rest of my life. It shows up on my background check forever, you know, and I'm just blessed that like I've been able to build a life where that doesn't matter anymore. But some people can't. Some people don't get the opportunities that I got, you know, and I recognize that greatly. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, I go out and I talk, because I think people meet me and don't know that I'm exactly the same as the men that I serve, that I'm helping out, you know.
That's
And
the key, man. We're all those people. I mean, and that's as long as the person providing the help can perceive of themselves as the person receiving the help, that's really a game changer. And I'm gonna cut us off there because I'm looking at the clock. So for those of you who caught this live stream, this is a live stream, but it's a pre-recorded portion of the Teacher on the Radio program, which airs every Monday on 88.5 FM WTTU Cookeville, The Nest. And this is going to be airing on Monday, October the 17th between 4 and 6 p.m. And the views are my guests and mine alone, do not represent 88.5 FM student managers or this institution that has offered the students this awesome radio station. Those awesome students have allowed a teacher up in the booth since 2007. We're going to get back to some music, and we're going to have one very brief conversation about the music that you chose when we come back. So this is Teacher on the Radio, 88.5 FM WTTU, a pre-recorded edition, pre-recorded last week on a weekday for this Monday, the 17th of October. My guest is Justin Veals of Recovery Kitchen and Independence Again. We've had two wonderful interview segments, one about his work that he does, which you all can support. I'll find out, he'll give me a link maybe later, and I'll drop it on the show page for how to help out Recovery Kitchen, because they do accept donations here in Cookeville, Tennessee. And then also we talked for a long time about why he and I are anti-authoritarians and why we believe that a non-authoritarian, cooperative, mutual aid approach to activism works better. Mutual aid and voluntary cooperation works better than relying on externals such as authoritarian bureaucracies to provide us with our basic needs. So, and it's interesting that you said in that earlier portion that some people think that makes you conservative and some people think that makes you liberal. So that story of the doctor's office was well taken. But we're going to not talk very much longer, but just briefly, and those other answers weren't brief, just for the record. So
Yeah,
so
no.
briefly, why is today's playlist mostly punk rock songs? And what is how has punk rock helped you in your life and your activism and your
Yeah,
recovery?
yeah.
What does punk rock mean to you?
I mean, so to me, punk rock is it's the sound of anarchy, right? So punk rock for me is about three guys getting together and being very angry about how things are, but also accepting people just like they are. That's the crazy thing about punk rock, right? Like, I hate the government, but I love all of you. You know what I'm saying? As long as you don't try to tell me how to live, we're groovy. You know what I mean? And it stems, my love for punk rock stems from the grunge movement. I was in sixth grade the year that Nevermind, 10 by Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, all these albums dropped in one summer. You know what I mean? And the entire landscape of rock and roll changed for me, because it went from hair bands and Guns N' Roses, right, to this really gritty, dirty thing. And grunge led me to punk. So, and I don't listen to a lot of grunge now. I don't listen to Nirvana and things like that, but I listen to punk rock all the time, and I'm still discovering new things. There's one song by Idols on this playlist, and I just discovered them 2 months ago, and they just are perfect, just anti-authoritarian, like, the song in the playlist, I'm Scum, is my favorite song by them. And it's just like the anger and the freedom and the understanding, it's all there. You know what I mean? And they're just my people. That's where I live. I've got black fingernails and I'm covered in tattoos, and I hate the government. That's who I am, and that's why I love punk rock.
So I may be able to intersperse some moments in the show where I say what we just heard and like that. But if in case I didn't, please go to www.teacherontheradio.com, and the entire playlist will be posted there. And I will try to include a link on how to support the wonderful work of Recovery Kitchen that's going on here in Cookeville. And Justin is, he told me before we did this interview, he said, I'm an open book. So you can find him on social media. You can see him around town doing this great work. And this is the first of several shows I'm going to have where I'm going to have some of my local new friends that I consider to be kind of Cookeville's finest, as far as keeping me wanting to live in Cookeville, as far as not feeling isolated, not feeling alone, feeling that we do have hope and we do have connection. And if all the people like us left Cookeville, then what, right? So I'm glad you have chosen that Cookeville is your home. Gives me just a ton of hope. And we're going to continue to collaborate and behind the scenes where some of the nitty gritty work gets done. People have heard the poems I've played by my incarcerated friend on the show. Justin is helping us with our program, the mutual aid program that's helping the people that are incarcerated. And if you want to learn more about that, you can also hit me up. So this is Teacher on the Radio. 88.5 FM is the Nest, Cookeville's only alternative. And we're going to get back to the rest of the music. And mostly this show is these three interview segments and the music, because we talked a lot. But it's been an honor to have you on the show today, Justin. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.